Here are the two most underrated exercises that you are not doing in the gym that will give you the most benefits. Now here are two exercises that are underutilized in your training routine. Here's a clue. These exercises are unilateral movements. That means they involve the left side first and then the right side, or vice versa. So it's one side at the time. Often when you do a gym exercise, a lot of exercises are bilateral, involving both sides of the body at any one point of time, like the bench press or the chin-up or the squat. Unilateral exercises are important because it helps you to minimize the imbalances between your left and your right. So here's the first exercise that you're missing out in your training program. The first exercise that is underrated is the split squat. Now, you may have heard me speak about this exercise before, but today I want to give you more information on the split squat and exactly why you should be including this in your training routine, especially in your legs days, for maximal bang for buck. Well, the split squat, for one, differs from the lunge. I think a lot of people get this quite mixed up. So what exactly is the difference? A lunge is a movement that involves your foot moving off the ground after a rep. So for example, if you're doing a walking lunge and you're walking forward, so one foot is kind of changing as you're walking forward. Now you can see this in the example above. That is a lunge where you are continually moving, so it's a dynamic movement. A lunge can also be something like an alternate step. So you step forward and backwards and forward and backwards, and that could be a lunge. But a split squat is where your feet are kind of pasted on the ground and you are moving forward and backwards, but your foot continually is being pasted on the ground. That's the one difference between a lunge and a split squat. With regards to the movement itself, I see a lot of people performing the split squat incorrectly. Here's an example. A lot of people perform the split squat by dropping the back foot. So by doing this and coming up, and doing this and coming up. If you looked online, you probably see that a lot of split squats are being performed in this particular manner. Now, the manner in which I want to introduce the split squat is a split squat that forces you to get your knees past your toes. This particular movement is super important because the split squat is a movement that emphasizes a particular muscle called the VMO. So if I'm standing forward and I flex my quads, the VMO is this teardrop muscle. It's a teardrop muscle. When you flex it, it comes right up there. And this teardrop muscle is a very important knee stabilizer. The VMO is more effectively activated when your knees can actually travel past your toes in a split squat movement that I'm performing. Here are some of the key points that you should look out for in performing a split squat. In a split stance, the goal is to be able to keep your torso leaned slightly backwards, because if your torso is forward, your flexors are too tight. So lean slightly backwards, and then you want to move forward like an escalator. So think about moving down an escalator, but not coming up like an elevator. So remember what I said earlier, if you're dropping your back foot and coming up, that's moving up like an elevator. That's a no-no. We want to focus on an escalator, going downwards, and as you see, as I go downwards, my heels are planted on the floor, my knees ideally past my toes from the side view, and then I push back. So I go forward, keeping my heels on the floor, my torso is still leaned back, knees past my toes, and I push back. Okay, performing it again, clamp, and push back. This here is the split squat. The split squat, as I said earlier, is a great knee stabilizer exercise. It really also helps to minimize the imbalances between your left side and your right side. The way you would perform this exercise is identify the weaker side of your body and choose to perform that side first. The number of reps that you can do on your weaker side dictates the number of reps that you will repeat on your stronger side. So for example, if you started with your left foot first, it being the weaker foot, you can only perform 10 reps on the left foot. The right foot will repeat 10 reps. Even though your right could be stronger, you could perform 15 reps on your right foot. You're keeping it to 10 reps. This allows you to balance your body better with regards to strength. Now, some of you will wonder, if you're performing the split squat, what if you're not able to keep the soles of your feet or your leading foot on the floor? That means your calves potentially are too tight. Well, there are ways of regressing or progressing the split squat, meaning making it easier or making it more difficult for the person in question, whoever you're training. So here's a great way on how you can regress the split squat or make it easier. Let's say your calves are really tight and you have a problem actually keeping your foot on the floor as you perform that escalator movement. One way to do it is to be able to elevate your foot. So I would put a platform, whether it's a step or a plate that you can use. The higher the step or the higher the plate, the easier the movement. So if I'm really tight on my calves, a step, for example, would shorten my range of movement and make the split squat a lot easier in performing it. So that's how you regress the split squat. If you wanted to progress the split squat and make it more difficult, what you do is you elevate the rear foot. So instead of the front, you go to the back right now. So for example, if I'm stepping forward and my back foot is elevated, now I'm going down, this forces me to go down even lower with a stretch on my hip flexor. Now this here is a more advanced version of the split squat. It's a progression. So for people who have a good range of movement, who are really flexible, who can go all the way down in a squat, ass to grass, performing a split squat with a rear foot elevation is going to be more beneficial for them. If you are someone who has really tight hip flexors, who doesn't have the ankle flexibility to come down all the way, then performing a split squat with your front foot elevated is the way to go. The way that I would incorporate the split squat into your programming is to prioritize it by putting it as the first exercise. Now, typically the first exercise in your program is the exercise that demands the most concentration from you. It's probably the most difficult exercise. The split squat requires a lot more balance, a lot more flexibility, and because you're doing one side at a time, it would take a bit more time as well. So by prioritizing the split squat as the first exercise, that's a great way to add it in your legs day, because you typically will do a squat or a bilateral exercise. So this is a good change up to help break plateaus. Alternatively, you could also put it in the middle of the program if you really wanted to. I will not put the split squat at the end of the program. This is where you are completely fatigued, and typically when you are performing a new activity that requires a lot more concentration, when you are fatigued, you will not perform it the best. So make sure that you are fresh when you perform the split squat. The next movement that is highly underrated but extremely beneficial is going to be an upper body movement. And if you haven't guessed it already, that I'm holding a dumbbell, we are going to be performing the neutral grip shoulder dumbbell press. Now, most of the time when people perform a shoulder press, the elbows are flat out and the hands are outwards this way in a pronated position, so they are consistently pressing the weight. A lot of the times you will find individuals that do heavy shoulder presses tend to get impingements, pain, clicking in their shoulders. And one of the reasons why is often when you perform a press this way, you also rely on a really large muscles called your lats. So in a shoulder press movement, if you are performing a really heavy weight, you would find that your lats actually ache the next day because you're activating your lats as a stabilizer for your press. In performing the neutral grip dumbbell shoulder press, we effectively take the lats out of the equation because your hands are not pressing this way, they are brought in. So they're in front of your body, removing the lats, and you're solely focusing on your shoulders and your ability of your shoulders to press that weight up. This is how the movement is performed. Main thing here is you try to balance yourself by putting an alternate stance towards a pillar or an immovable pole. And then you want to be able to push the dumbbell straight ahead, upwards. Now, watch the position of my biceps. My biceps are brought towards my ears, and I'm bringing it down all the way to my shoulders again, pushing up, biceps to my ears, and all the way down to my shoulders again. One of the key mistakes in performing this exercise is that people tend to cheat. That means if I press the dumbbell up, my goal is to be able to keep my hands straight ahead of me. Now, if I press it up, my lats typically would flare out and push my elbows outward. So you see a lot of people performing this exercise unable to keep their hands parallel to their body. Typically, the arms will come out. That is the first sign that you're overusing your lats in a press. So that's exactly why this exercise is really beneficial, because it teaches you to focus on your shoulders. So if I'm pressing out and I'm doing this as I come up, that's a no-no. Now, if I'm pressing up and I don't have the range of movement to bring my arms above my head, that means I'm really tight in my lats, so typically I'll look like that. That's also a no-no. So what do I do when I press the dumbbell above my head and I don't have that range of movement? I cheat. I will press it up and I will arch my back in order to bring the dumbbell up. So even though my dumbbell's above my head, I'm cheating by arching my back. That's also a no-no. In a strict neutral grip dumbbell shoulder press, you want to be able to keep your spine neutral and press the dumbbell above your head as much as you can. Now obviously, if you have a limited range of movement, you work with that limited range of movement first and slowly aim to better it or increase it. In choosing the weight for a neutral grip shoulder dumbbell press, start with a light weight, because a lot of the times you would find that with the typical heavy loads that you use, you will not be able to perform this exercise, because remember again, your lats are now out of the equation with your pressing movement. You also want to make sure that you're getting the technique right when you're performing this activity. As mentioned earlier, it is a unilateral movement, so one side at the time. In order to perform this activity well, identify your weaker shoulder. The number of reps that you can perform on your weaker shoulder dictates the number of reps that you perform on your stronger shoulder. So it's one arm and then the other arm. Now, can you do a bilateral movement? Can you actually do two arms at the same time? Yes, you can, provided you're a little bit more advanced. Because often we have such great imbalances between your left and your right that one side will be able to outperform the other quite significantly. And so this activity is a great activity to minimize upper body imbalances. You probably heard me talk about this before, that you are as strong as your weakest link. So imagine going to a bench press, for example, that one hand lacks so much strength compared to the other. You will fall short of the maximum number of reps that you can do because one arm is letting you down. By performing the unilateral presses as a shoulder press like this, you will be able to minimize imbalances between your weaker and stronger arm, hence allowing you to be stronger in the overall press. Now, where would I put this particular unilateral press movement in my workout? As with the split squat, I would add this unilateral shoulder press movement to the start of my workout. This is where you are most focused, and this is where you can minimize a lot of the errors that you would make when you are exhausted or tired. So the first activity, also it takes more time because you're doing one side and then the other. You can also add it to the middle of your workout, and especially if you wanted to do a bilateral press on a seat, for example, like a seated bilateral shoulder press, neutral grip, you can do that as well, and that could be added in the middle of your workout. And again, this is not an activity I would put at the end of the workout because you will be fatigued and you will not be able to perform this exercise correctly as intended. So these two exercises, the split squat and the standing neutral grip dumbbell shoulder press, are the two exercises, if performed correctly, as I've showed you, the two exercises that will give you most bang for your buck in your workouts. These are also two exercises that are highly underutilized. So guys, delve into it, use it in your programming, and reap the benefits from these two movements. So guys, thank you so much for watching, and I really appreciate your time. Now, if you've watched this video and you have benefited from it, make sure that you give a thumbs up to the video itself and hop onto my Inner Circle community. This is my online community where I share programs as such, as well as exercises that can help you benefit and get the most bang for your buck with the workouts that you're doing. Guys, I look forward to seeing you soon in our next episode.